Yo, YouTube, what is going on? It's your boy Salvation Elite. We are back with another video, guys. And guys, today, oh my word, the Huntsmen did it. Who would have thought? I mean, I know a lot of you guys out there probably did think. Obviously, Prestinni made a big time difference. And today, normally on like a Monday video, we'd be breaking down the previous weekend. But I'm a little bit short on time this week. I was planning on doing this later in the week, so I thought, why not? But we're doing it today. Let's just say this is going to be really tough. So we have 5 events left in the season before playoffs and COD champs kicks into gear. So I thought, why not do the power rankings now and make it happen? Basically, all teams have either 3 or 4 events left, and also considering the roster mania last week, I think it'd be fun to now talk about some power rankings. Let's get right into it. Let's go. So this is the format we're using right here. We're gonna split them up into 4 tiers. I guess there's no limit to how many teams could be in each tier, but I thought like 4 tiers is a pretty good breakdown with 12 teams. Now, between like 2 and 4 teams per tier, depending on what we want to do here, and go from there. So I think this would be a pretty fun breakdown. And then of course I will be ranking them. So the farther right you are, the better team you are. The farther left you are, the worst team you are. Okay, so you want to be as far right as possible. So first, let's get all the teams into their tiers, and then we'll organize the tiers after we get the tiers organized and how we want them to be. So let's start at the bottom here. All right, the bottom tier teams, there's some that are pretty obvious, like the LA Gorillas that stick out right here off the rip. Then you've got, you know, the Paris Legion haven't been great either. Again, we might change this up as we go through and like look at the other tier 3s and tier 2s, so there might be some sifting around here. But I'm gonna throw the Gorillas in there, the Legion in there, and you've got to throw Seattle in there right now. They've been absolutely horrible, and like in this last event, they just looked terrible. And like with all the tweets from like Octane and everything else, it's just tragic. We'll be doing a full breakdown of CDL Seattle on the podcast tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. But for now, I think the Surge gotta be in that tier 4 as well. Ultra's kind of a fringe team, but they've looked pretty good, and they've been showing improvement. So I think I'm gonna throw them in the tier 3 category. And then when I'm looking at like some other teams that I think would probably end up there, I think I'm gonna throw the Mutineers as well. Maybe they end up in the tier 2, but like with their whole roster change now with Mox, this is like the only team that we really haven't seen that made a roster change yet, that we haven't seen their new roster. So now they've brought in Awakening for Mox, so we haven't really seen how that's gonna play out yet. So because of that change, I'm gonna put them in tier 3 but they have a lot of upside to get better. Again, we'll organize this out a little bit more in a second here, but I'm gonna put them in tier 3 for now. The only other one I would like consider here is OpTic Gaming, probably, with the news of the gunless potential change this week, which is weird news now that they've made, you know, a finals and now a semifinals. They're in pretty good shape. I'd be surprised if they end up making a change. I'm gonna leave them like right here for now. We'll see what happens with where we end up actually putting them. Tier 2, you gotta throw like the Subliners in here, the London Royal Ravens, and then I think at this point you gotta throw the Rokkr in tier 2. Based off the last 2 performances from the Rokkr, you could even argue potentially lower, and like OpTic Gaming's outperformed them in the last 2 events, so that's an argument that you could definitely make depending on what you think about the Rokkr moving forward. They have some tough groups. I mean, they're actually nuts, really tough groups moving forward. So like when it comes to how they might perform at these tournaments the next few weeks, they might end up looking like a lesser tier than they actually are moving forward, even if they make improvements. But for now, I'm gonna leave them in tier 2, and of course that leaves 3 teams here for tier 1. So we actually ended up having 3 teams in every single tier, which is kind of lit. So we got FaZe, Huntsmen, and Empire here in tier 1. So I guess the only thing I think I'm gonna move OpTic to tier 2 here, looking at this now, because they've been contenders. They've looked like a solid team last 2 weeks with Chino. So if they don't make a move, then I'm gonna keep them in tier 2. That's kind of like the iffy part. So let's start at the bottom here with tier 4 and start organizing and ranking these teams. Again, I don't think there's really any argument with the LA Gorillas. I think you gotta I think you have to put them basically at the back of this list here at number 12. And then you could debate between like Paris and Surge with how they performed, but Paris at least took a dom off of the Huntsmen and took a hard point off OpTic in CDL Seattle. So I think I'm gonna move them up a little bit farther here at the front of tier 4, and then Seattle's gonna be a little bit, you know, a little bit closer to Paris here, and but they're gonna be second to last, which is really tough for Seattle because of how talented the roster is. But when you just factor in, you know, the fact that this team, it doesn't feel like they actually want to play at all. I mean, Octane's literally tweeting like, bro, I don't want to play anymore. Get me out of this year. I can't wait till it's over. How do you put a team that has guys like, basically chalking the season higher than like bottom 2. So but we'll throw them in there for now. All right, so that moves us up to tier 3 here. So we got the Ultra and the Mutineers. The Mutineers have won an event. I know a lot of people have like an asterisk next to that event because it was the first online event. There's some problems with the connection and everything else. So some people don't see it as legitimate as some others do, because we've seen the upset that they have. And I do really like Awakening as a player, even though we haven't actually seen him play on the roster after benching Mox. I'm going to move them pretty far, like quite a bit farther up the tier 3 here. The Ultra, I'm going to leave bunched a little bit closer to Paris here, and then see how that feels moving forward, because tier 2 is kind of a cluster. And like right now with the middling teams in the CoD League, like you look at all these guys like Florida, New York, OpTic, Royal Ravens, Rokkr, we don't really know exactly where they are at this point, even though CDL Seattle gave us a lot of information about where these teams lie. So tier 2 is really tough with these 4 teams here. Obviously London with 0 looked like a whole new team this event at CDL Seattle. It felt like 0 unlocked Dylan. He was like the key to the box. Shout out Rowdy Rich for like unlocking Dylan as a player and bringing back the Black Ops 4 talent that we knew was in there. And Dylan's been amazing. 0 was significantly better on London than he was on New York Subliners. And so London looks like a pretty scary team moving forward, and like a lot of upside to get better and better. I feel like out of all the teams here, I'm least confident in OpTic week in and week out, even though they really did put up a fight. It's tough here, man, because then you come down to like New York, Rokkr, and Royal Ravens. So obviously the Rokkr, they beat OpTic 3-2 at the beginning of CDL at the beginning of CDL Seattle. Then they lost 3-0 to the Huntsmen in a really close series. The first 2 maps were incredibly close, 250 to 233 on Cave, and then 6-5 on Gunrunner S&D. So it was an insane series for them, even though they lost 3-0. And that's kind of been like a theme with them versus the Huntsmen especially. But then they come back and get 3-0'd by OpTic after originally beating them 3-2. You know, I have a little bit more confidence in them long term, because basically on the season they've been one of the best hardpoint teams. They have a 57% map win percentage in hardpoint, which is 3rd best in the CDL. Even though in the short term they've had some struggles, I think the next time they play, they're going to be a really solid team. And you know, it just takes a few tweaks for them and they'll be right back at it again. But it's definitely an uphill battle for them. So I think I'm going to move the Rokkr just slightly back behind OpTic and move them just slightly forward, like a puny little percentage forward. Of course, Rokkr beat them the first time around 3-2, and then Rokkr got 3-0'd by the Huntsmen. Then Rokkr got 3-0'd by OpTic. And the last event, they beat the Mutineers, but then they lost to Toronto and to New York 3-1, then 3-0. So I don't feel I can put them too much higher than that or too much lower than that. It's about the right spot right here for them. So now we've got the Royal Ravens and the Subliners in tier 2 left here. This is tough because like my gut says I trust New York more, but literally this event this weekend on Saturday, London beat them pretty handily, like in a pretty big statement win, because they played 3 gun runners and smoked them all the way through. So you have to give London Royal Ravens the edge. They just played in the championship. When you compare them face to face with all these squads, I think they come out here in pretty good shape. I'm not going to put them near the exact front of tier 2. I'm going to move it kind of like this, I think, something like that, because I'll move it down a little bit. All right, there we go. I made things a little bit more readable, but I'm going to do something like that. Even though the Royal Ravens are great, I think all these teams are very close, and like on a given day or a given event, they could definitely beat each other all around here in tier 2. So I think it feels like a really solid tier 2 here, and I'm feeling pretty good about this so far. So that leaves us with tier 1, the 3 best teams in the Call of Duty League, the 3 best teams for a while now in the Call of Duty League, and the 3 best teams that we all thought were going to be the 3 best teams going into the beginning of the Call of Duty League. So now we made it, boys. We made it. But obviously, Atlanta and Empire did not play this weekend at CDL Seattle. I mean, of course, they play again in 2 weeks, and this is going to be a spicy one because FaZe, Empire, and the Huntsmen are all at CDL Minnesota. So it'll tell us a lot about where these teams are at versus each other. But right now, it is pretty hard to tell where they're at, because FaZe won CDL Florida, and the Huntsmen and Empire weren't there. Then the Huntsmen, with their new addition of Prestinni, they win CDL Seattle, but FaZe and Empire aren't there. And then, of course, back at CDL Chicago, when, of course, Gunless was still on Huntsmen, Dallas won CDL Chicago and beat FaZe. A little bit of duck, duck, goose action with these 3 teams here. A little bit of lottery action with these teams. So I think I have to put the... Even though they just won, they did just make a roster change. I'm going to move them a little bit here, you know, towards like the middle third of tier 1. significantly ahead of the Royal Ravens, but I'm not willing to say that they're right there with FaZe and Empire right now. And then when it comes to Empire and FaZe, I mean, when you look at these teams stats wise, it makes sense why they're all near the top. I mean, they're all top 4 in hardpoint, S&D, and domination. FaZe is #1 win percentage in S&D and Dom, while the Huntsmen are the #2 win percentage in Dom and S&D, and the #1 in hardpoint, while FaZe is #2 win percentage in hardpoint. I have a little bit more faith in FaZe because of the no roster change long term, and that's why they're ahead. And then Empire is sitting top 4 in all categories as well. Of course, we've seen the improvement with Empire week in and week out, and it feels like they're just starting to hit their stride, and they're really dangerous right now with how well Shotzi's playing and the slaying power between all the young guns on that squad mixed with the veteran leadership of Crim and Clay. They're a really dangerous squad. So in my opinion, FaZe is still the #1 team in the league, even though Dallas beat them just a few events ago, but it's very close. So I'm gonna move Empire like right up neck and neck with FaZe having the slightest edge over the Empire. So there it is. Tier 4 Guerrillas Surge Legion, Tier 3 is Ultra Mutineers, Tier 2 is Rokkr, OpTic, New York, and Ravens, and Tier 1, the 3 best teams in the league, are the Huntsmen, the Empire, and the Atlanta FaZe. There's our power rankings. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Obviously, I know you guys got all your comments and all your opinions, so drop them all down below. What I get right, what I get wrong, of course, roast me down there. And of course, be on the lookout for the podcast tomorrow, because we got a lot of news to go over, and it should be a good one. And join the community league. Join the Discord down below. Check out our last video was about the community league, which is really exciting. So of course, before you do anything else, check that out and sign up for that, because registration opens on Tuesday. Let's make it happen. All right, boys. As always, I'm your boy Selfishly. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. I'm out.